Balance changes are here. We've got a lot to discuss. I'm going to hop into some games with some decks where I have both the buffs and the nerfs. And, we're going to talk about all these cards and what is being changed. Okay, we are in our first match with our first deck, and this deck is all of the cards that are going to be nerfed. So, wow, E-Giant first play is crazy. But yeah, let's talk about each one of these and kind of go through what's happening. That should low-key be tower down already, I'm pretty sure, unless he has like a perfect response for this. But yeah, let's talk about the graveyard first because I got to use it early here. The graveyard is getting reworked, so it's not a nerf. It's not, classified as a buff or a nerf. Basically, what they're doing is, oh my gosh, King Tower is going to suck right here. But basically, what they're doing is making the skeleton count from the graveyard 13 to 14, which is interesting. But they're making the spawn pattern determined. Like, it's already determined before you place the graveyard. The skellies will all spawn in the same way every time you graveyard now, instead of it being random, where, the spawn would be just all over the place, right? So there's no way to predict it before, right? But now there's ways to actually play against it. I'm not really sure how to feel about this one. This one's one of the weirder ones because I can't tell if that's going to actually help or hurt graveyard in general. Sometimes the RNG just screws you, like if you are a graveyard player and you get really bad RNG, and other times you get blessed and you get those 4 skellies to spawn directly on the tower somehow. You know what I mean? I think everyone has gone through that experience when facing graveyard and playing graveyard themselves. But I don't know. This one's weird. I guess it's going to be one of these things where we kind of have to see how it goes after a few weeks, and if people can adapt to it and like actually, get better at predicting, well, not predicting, but getting the defenses on point when we know the graveyard spawns. Even if you do know the graveyard spawns, a lot of the time, low-key, you're like defending a graveyard with almost no elixir. So I feel like there's not that many options to defend it. And this won't change that much in terms of how the card is played. I don't think, at least. I just couldn't see how it would change that much. But yeah, anyways, enough about that. The graveyard, interesting. I'm not sure how to feel. That one I'm very impartial about because I, do think graveyard is really annoying and the RNG aspect is dumb. But anyways, moving on to the next card, let's talk about the Skeleton Barrel. So it's getting a 5% hit points nerf. The Evo one, by the way, not the normal. So the normal Skeleton Barrel is not getting a nerf. I personally think Skeleton Barrel is just one of those cards that is just kind of too strong in general. So I definitely like the Evo nerf, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. I think the card is still going to be just super annoying. To be completely, just honest with you, that card is really annoying. Same with a lot of cards in this deck right here. But yeah, what do y'all think about that? I definitely want to hear all your guys' opinions and what you think they missed and, should add. In the final bounce changes, of course, make sure to drop those down below. But yeah, next up is the Musketeer hero. So actually 3 heroes are getting nerfed: the Musketeer, the Mini Packet, and the Knight, which is pretty lit. I'm very in favor of this. Heroes are, pretty darn good. So the Musketeer one is getting the turret deploy time from 1 to 2 seconds, I believe. Yeah. I have it up on my other screen right here so I can look at exactly what it is, so I can actually get you the right information this time. Because last time I did a video like this, I literally didn't even know exactly what was happening. But yeah, the Musketeer turret's going to be 1 to 2 seconds. It goes from 1 to 2 seconds, if that makes sense. So the deploy time is going to take a lot longer. I think that's a great change because, the card is really... I've heard a few people say it's mid. Dude, it is not mid. It is so unbelievably broken the way you can play with this card if you are a decent, not even a great player, just a decent player, and have a decent understanding of how to get value. The card is just really, really good. And even Musketeer itself, I would not be mad if Musketeer, the card itself, got a nerf. It is super strong. And it always has been, in my opinion. It's just kind of been, I guess, not super incredibly popular until the evolution, or the hero, came out. But yeah, I'm in favor of this one. I think it's going to make it worse. Definitely a good change because the turret should not lock on things instantly. It's way too overpowered. It should never do that, ever. Literally, that should have never been a thing in the first place. So I like that they're changing it. And, of course, next up we have the Mini P.E.K.K.A hero getting its damage from 40 to 30% when you heal. I definitely like that, like the damage it's healed, if that makes sense. So basically your health of the Mini P.E.K.K.A goes up 30% instead of 40, which is a good change because it honestly... still, I think it's going to be good because it's only one elixir, of course. But honestly, the card was just... It's in every deck, literally every deck. Of course, I can only use one hero in this deck right here because, there's only one hero slot plus a champion slot. So I can't use all of them, but you guys already know how broken they are. You've seen them played and everything. But this should be game right here. I don't think he can stop this push. I can just go arrows. There's no way that E-Giant's going to take my tower in time. Yeah, GG's. Okay, anyways, back to yapping. Next up was the Hero Knight, where the shield HP is going from 819 to 768, minus 6% hit points. I definitely like this one. Hero Knight is, I don't know how to describe it. The heroes in general are hard to balance and like describe how strong they are because they're so much weirder and more just not natural for the game, and they have a place that really I don't think should ever have existed. You know what I mean? So it's hard to kind of balance these cards, in all honesty, but I think this is a good nerf. It's a little bit too strong for sure. I definitely don't think it's crazy broken right now, but it is really annoying. And in situations, you can automatically lose because they have a Hero Knight ability. Like, you can pretty much guarantee yourself damage if you go Goblin Joe and you put a Hero Knight at the bridge, and then you pop the ability to pull their counter out of range. It's like, you know, the strategy is not there. It really takes no brain cells to use the card. You know, on defense, maybe a little bit sometimes. You know, if your opponent goes for like a mirrored or an Evo Goblin Barrel and you can pop it in the middle and pull all 6 goblins, sure, whatever. I don't care about that because I don't think it should have, you know, that much versatility in the first place. But I think it's a good nerf overall. I hope that it makes the card a little bit worse, but while still keeping it, you know, usable. I personally think that the Musketeer and the Mini P.E.K.K.A. will be a little bit worse, like a substantial amount worse. The Mini P.E.K.K.A. is still going to be the best, I think it's going to be the best hero after this update because of the value you still get for 1 elixir. Like, the cheap cost is really what the thing is. So I'm glad they're nerfing all of them, but I think that the Musketeer and the Knight are going to get more significantly impacted than the Mini P.E.K.K.A., if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. But yeah, next up, we have the Boss Bandit, and I'm going to have Boss Bandit in both my buff and nerf deck because I want you guys to decide what you think. So this one's a little bit confusing. It is a plus 9% hit speed per second, basically. And then also there's a damage, you know, decrease where you have less hit points per hit, I guess. And then total DPS is not changing really at all. I think it's going to be the same. And then the dash damage is slightly less, 9% less as well. So it's an interesting change. I think that, you know, it gets more hits, but it does less damage, but it's not that much more hits. It's barely any more, if that makes sense. So it's going to be a nerf overall, I think, to the Boss Bandit, in my opinion. I'm definitely going to keep it in both decks, though, and let you guys make your own decision on that. I think, you know, it could be a buff, technically, because it might get that 1 more quicker shots, which would in tune lead to more damage overall, if that makes sense. I don't know. But I still think it's a nerf because, you know, that's kind of a situational aspect where it won't happen very often, if that makes sense. So, anyways, enough yapping about that. I'm just going to go for the Mini P.E.K.K.A. on defense. That is all the nerfs that are coming to the game. I need to defend this right here. Low-key, Knight and Mini P.E.K.K.A. by themselves without even the hero are pretty good, actually. Like, both cards are solid. I'm going to go Skeleton Barrel to tank on top of that. But yeah, those are all the nerfs. Let me know which one you are excited about the most. I would personally say probably the Musketeer. It is just really annoying. I want to see 3 Musketeers in this balance change as well. Moving on to what is the most exciting part, in my opinion, which is always the buffs. So we have I mean, not a ton, but like a decent bit of buffs right here. I also put in a card in the Goblin Curse that I think could use a buff as well. So I added that to it. I also added Evil Bomber to this deck because I want to see, as crazy as this may sound, I actually am saying this, I want to see the Evolution Bomber get a change. That Giant Skelly is going to die, right? Or no? No way it doesn't. Oh my gosh, no, my Little Prince was level 15, so it got 1-tapped. That's so bad. Oh, that sucks. There goes level 16 for you. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, first buff, let me stop yapping and get into them, is the Furnace. This is an interesting one. He's got an Inferno Tower. That's going to cook me. But Furnace is going to be a plus 13% hit per second. So basically, it gets a lot more hits off. I don't really know how to feel about this one because I think Furnace is pretty below, I wouldn't even say below average. I'd say it's pretty average for the card right now. It's kind of the average, just, you know, description of the game right now. Furnace is okay, but it's not great. And Evo Furnace is okay, and it's not great. So, I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing that they're changing it. Maybe a small buff could have been, you know, better. I'm going to curse that, by the way. Come on, give me some value. I think that this change is going to make the Furnace definitely good again. Very, very good. It's not changing the hit, like how fast the Furnace walks or anything. You know, remember how it used to be fast or medium, whatever. And they changed that, and it, you know, kind of affected the card quite a lot. It's actually just affecting the hit speed of the Furnace itself. So, interesting change right here. I think it's a good one. Maybe a little bit too much, just like slightly, because 13% is quite a bit with the hit speed. You know, that's going to get a lot more shots off. It doesn't do much damage, so it's not like a Fire Spirit spawn increase or anything. I'm glad they didn't go about that when they were thinking about ways to buff the card, to be completely honest, because that would have been very dumb. But yeah, I guess I'm happy about that one. And next up is the Ram Rider. The Ram Rider hit speed's getting a plus 6%. So basically it's going to get more hits, kind of similar to the Furnace, where it's, about half of the Furnace. So Furnace was 13% increase. Ram Rider is 6% increase. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. I think Ram Rider is solid. I'd never have thought the card is bad or good necessarily. I think it's just a good win condition where it's not super broken. It was broken for a while when it had that super crazy charging speed like the Prince did too. But yeah, and then we have the Giant Skeleton. This is actually my favorite change in terms of buffs, because Giant Skeleton is one of those cards. How can you hate the Giant Skeleton? He just seems so wholesome, and he's just kind of trash. And he's just been trash as well for a long time. I think that sometimes he was okay because there was cards that were really broken that would pair well with him. For example, there was a Graveyard deck that was good with Giant Skeleton when the Goblin Curse was super broken, when the Furnace was super broken. So, those things kind of inflated him, but he's not a great card. He's a fun card, and he's, interesting. I think the card deserves some love because it doesn't get some very often. I can't even remember the last time Giant Skeleton got changed. Maybe it did like slightly a year or two ago. But it definitely was not something super significant, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be happy that this card is getting a change. It's an 8% hit point buff. Is that going to make the card meta? No, I don't think that. Like, if anything is going to get a big buff, I think it should have been Giant Skelly, not the Furnace, if that makes sense. But still a good change that they are addressing that it's kind of trash, and it's going to get used more, hopefully. That's the whole goal of the buffs, right? So, and then last buff that we have is the Little Prince. It's getting a 5% damage buff from, I think it's, 99 to 104. Yeah, that's what it says right here. And I think that that's good because the Little Prince is just not really a champion. It doesn't feel that good. It had its moment when it was first released. It was so broken, so strong, and they just kept nerfing because they couldn't get the right nerf for it, and it took forever, but they finally got it balanced-ish, and now it's kind of just weak. I don't know how to describe it. I think it definitely could use a small buff, so I do like this change. I do not want Little Prince to be the best card in the game because it's like very toxic when the Guardian was super broken and whatnot, and you could just pop it and instantly win. Kind of similar to like the Turret Musketeer, you know what I mean? In that aspect where it was way too strong, like how the Turret Musketeer is now, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think these are pretty darn good changes. I definitely like the buffs here with the Giant Skeleton. Little Prince definitely, I mean, Ram Rider is kind of Furnace is, deserving of a small buff, I guess. But personally, I'd like to see the Goblin Curse get a slight buff of some kind. I don't know how you even buff a card like this, though. That's the problem. And I'd also like to see Evo Bomber. That's why I did add them to this deck, because I want to see them, get a little bit of love. Of course, there's still, time to make final balance changes. There's probably going to be a few more things added. Usually they keep a lot of the same things in the final that are in the work in progress, but we'll see. Anyways, we are going to win this game pretty easily right there, and I want to hear all your guys' thoughts about what you think should be changed, what's missing from this balance change, and yeah, let me know down below. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, and peace.